to be here. For the record, my name is Gabriela Caleta Zapata, District 1 City Councilor, and I'm the chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Government Operations. Today is September 22nd, 2025. The exact time is 2:05. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.go@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the beginning and end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they are signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying in person, please be sure to add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber. If you are looking to testify virtually, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Michelle Goldberg, at Michelle, michelle.goldberg@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket 1411, message and order for your approval in order to adopt the liquor license conversion as a local option in the city of Boston. Thank you. This matter was sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and was referred to the committee on August 6th, 2025. Today, I am joined by my colleagues in order of arrival. I have City Councilor Ed Flynn, District 2, as number 1, and City Council President Rusi Louis-Jean. I will go to them for any opening remarks that they may have. Councilor Flynn? Councilor Louis-Jean?
Thank you to my colleagues for being here. I look forward to supporting and passing this. I don't know if I'm going to be here for the questioning period, but I just wanted to vocalize my support and thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to listen as close as I can to the testimony and learn about this as much as I can before I make a decision. I want to learn the pros and cons about this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. And we do have a letter from Brian Morrell, Boston City Councilor from District 4. Dear Council colleagues, I regret that I will be unable to attend afternoon's hearing due to a prior commitment. Thank you for hosting, and I look forward to reviewing the video footage. Okay, before I pass it over to our administration panel, just briefly talk about what this order seeks to do. Okay, so this docket, it talks about having under MGL Chapter 138, it was a new 2024 special law. Municipalities that accept a local option may allow a wine and malt licensee trade in that license for non-transferable all alcohol license under the following conditions. The local board must hold a hearing and vote. ABCC must approve the category change. The upgraded all alcohol license is non-transferable, and the upgrade does not increase the total number of licenses allowed for the city under Section 17 or any special act. So that was brief. I was hoping to just make it as brief as possible, but now I'll pass it over to Chief of Empowerment, Shogun Idowu, for any opening remarks you may have. You have the floor.
Great. All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon. First, I want to thank you, Councilor Caleta, for hosting this hearing. Council President Louis-Jean, great to see you, and want to appreciate all of the council for their continued support of economic opportunity and inclusion and all the matters that we bring before this body. Also want to thank the mayor for sponsoring this, and thank, in particular, the Chair of Ways and Means over in the legislature, Representative Aaron Michaelwitz, who came up with this and pushed it through the legislature to give opportunities to even more small businesses here in the city of Boston. And of course, I want to thank the team that's joining me here today, Kathleen Joyce, Danny Green from the Mayor's Office of Consumer Affairs and Licensing, but the entire MoCal team and the other departments located under our cabinet that are daily working to support the 18,000 small businesses that are employing 125,000 people and generating $28 billion every year. Just very quickly, To date, our cabinet has had the opportunity of awarding more than $35 million to 1,500 small businesses as one of our ways to support these businesses. And since last September, when the legislature approved 225 licenses for new licenses for small businesses, the team to my right, as well as all those that work in MoCal, working with small business, nightlife economy, and others in the community, have done way more than administrations in past have done to, in terms of communication, engagement, of making sure that folks know of the opportunities available, the amount of time that this team is spending to make themselves available to folks who have questions, either one-on-one or the community forums that we're hosting to get the information out there. That was just for the 225. This particular piece of legislation before you, as you noted, Councillor, is expanding the opportunity beyond those 225 new licenses and finding ways to support the 300 plus businesses who currently have beer and wine, but also those in the future who may wind up having one. So very important topic we're talking about, always in the spirit of supporting our small businesses that are not just providing jobs and income for individuals, but are supporting our families and our communities on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, I totally jumped the gun. I had totally forgotten what I wanted to do here, so a little awkward, but I apologize, Chairwoman and Danny. I'm gonna have the business owners come up who have signed up, only because they're in between lunch and dinner service. I know how busy they are. And so we'll have Mimi and Jason Chan from Dynasty come up, and then we'll have Jen from a District 1 favorite, Little Sage, come up as well. And we have somebody online. So please state your name, your affiliation, and you have 2 minutes to provide testimony. It should come on if it's not already.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time for today's hearing. So we're representing Dynasty, located at 14A Hudson Street in Chinatown by the Gate. We've been open since 2023. As you mentioned, this is an upgrade from the beer and wine liquor license to convert into a non-transferable alcohol license. So we're here today because we want to provide reasoning why this is going to be helpful for our business. Obtaining this will allow us to offer a more authentic dining experience. For example, in American and Italian, French restaurants, red wine pairs with red meat, white wine pairs with white meat, but for Chinese cuisine, it pairs well with rice wine and other Chinese spirits that we do not offer today because of the restriction of our license that we have currently. So having this will enhance the guest experience, particularly in celebrations and family-style gatherings. That's huge in the Chinese community. So it helps reflect the cultural significance of toasting and shared meals in our tradition. We also understand that the responsibility that comes with serving hard liquor, and we're committed to maintaining a safe, respectful, and family-friendly environment. Our staff will be properly trained and certified in responsible alcohol service, and we will continue to enforce strict ID checks and monitor consumption closely. Our hours of operation will remain consistent with the current zoning regulations, and we're mindful of minimizing any potential disturbances, both to our neighbors and the community. Ultimately, we want this license to help us serve our customers better, support local suppliers when possible, and contribute positively to the local dining scene and economy while upholding the standards and expectations set by the board. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mimi and Jason. I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Okay, next up, we'll have Jennifer Matarazzo from Little Sage, and I believe we have Ichchel Garcia from Angela's Cafe online, if we can cue her up while Jen makes her way to the podium. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. So I own Little Sage in the North End on Hanover Street. I'm a 40-seat restaurant, and I have a 10-seat bar with a beer, wine, and cordial license. And it would be amazing to be able to offer a full liquor license. I think that it'll help the overall experience of the restaurant and the revenue that comes in. It's almost like the way we give ourselves a raise. I mean, you can only charge so much money for the meals, and this is another way to bring the revenue up in, the overall guest experience. We have a lot of people that come from around the country, and they'll sit at the bar and they'll ask us about martini. And we're like, well, we really can't because we have a cordial license, and they look at us and they're so confused and trying to explain it to them about sugar content and all of that. They're just baffled by the whole thing. They just can't understand how that works. And we've had people who actually will say, all right, you know what, just give me a soda then, which then brings down our per person because they can't have, say, a martini because they don't really like wine or they don't like beer. So I think just the overall experience we can give them, if we were able to offer full alcohol, would just make all the difference with a small business. And I'm a 40-seat restaurant. I can't, people say, well, why don't you buy a full liquor license? I mean, to be honest, if I had that kind of money to buy a full liquor license, I may not be in business. I may have taken my money and moved to Florida. But, so we are at a disadvantage to, the bigger restaurants that can't afford that. So I hope that you take that into consideration and hopefully this can get passed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Okay, next we'll go to Ichchel. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. You have 2 minutes. Just be sure to state your name and then your affiliation.
Thanks, Gabriela. So thank you, City Council, for your time today. My name is Ichchel, and I'm reaching out to you on behalf of Angela's Cafe. I hope everyone can hear me fine.
Yes.
I am presenting our testimony on the concerns that have come up throughout the process of receiving a neighborhood restricted full liquor license. We initially started this process thinking we were applying for a full transferable liquor license. It wasn't until a public meeting held by the City of Boston around October 1st that we found out about the restricted liquor licenses. We also found out that there will be 12 new unrestricted all alcohol licenses available for use anywhere in the City of Boston. We understand the argument that we will recover our losses over time, despite having a restricted license. However, in the case of Angela's Cafe in Orient Heights, there are many factors that do not guarantee we will make the money back in time, especially in this unpredictable political climate. One such factor is that we are leasing our location, and we do not own it. In the case we would have to move out from our location under the restricted regulations, we would not be allowed to take the license with us. Another factor to consider is that the license isn't transferable between family members. Luckily, we had a year to consider the effect and decided to put the license under my name. Otherwise, my father, who has spent his whole life working in this industry and has dedicated about 20 years to building Angela's Cafe, which has recently been awarded the Legacy Award for being a community staple, would be at risk to losing the license if the business were to be transferred to me. Another case to consider is the ramification with lenders and the license being used as collateral. As a valuable asset with a fluctuating worth between $150,000 to $200,000. We spent around $150,000 at the time of purchasing the lease for our location. It came with that transferable beer and wine license. We feel like all of these ramifications should be considered when converting or surrendering a non-restricted beer and wine license. We feel more thought process should be put into the definition of restricted, and that there are certain instances that transfers should be allowed. Lastly, I would like to state that we have regrettably decided to move forward with the restricted liquor license, as we feel that we are forced to act now, as every day that goes by without a solution or response comes at a cost to our business. We would appreciate a solution that gets us on track to a full value, unrestricted license, or a tax break to compensate for the loss. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for joining us. Just double checking, we don't have anybody else online. Okay, no one in person. All right, we will thank you for being here and providing your perspectives, everyone. I really appreciate it. We'll circle back to Executive Director Kathleen Joyce from the Mayor's Office of Consumer Affairs and Licensing, as well as Daniel Green, who's the Executive Secretary of the Licensing Board, in the order that you prefer. Thank you. Thank you.
No, you don't touch it.
Yeah.
You just turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us here to testify before your committee. We are very excited about this opportunity in Boston. As you know, the most recent legislation was the biggest influx of new liquor licenses in Boston since the end of Prohibition. This was historic and a real boon to businesses that would like to expand their options. As you know, we are now 1 year into this new legislation of the 225 licenses, and the board has held 2 successful application rounds for these licenses. By way of an update, the board has approved 61 new licenses in just about every single zip code that qualifies. We're continuing to receive applications for these licenses and holding hearings on them as they come in. And in order to make sure that these are being put to the best use possible, we're continuing to, we're going to restart our bi-weekly office hours. We're starting another round of in-person info sessions. And as we move into the fall, we will continue to do as much outreach as possible so that every single restaurant owner, license holder, or future license holder is able to avail themselves of this opportunity before the city. This new legislation, should it be passed, that we have before us today, this liquor license conversion legislation is another tool for these businesses. Danny will talk about the process. As a staff, we're trying to make it as clear and as simple as possible. It will require filling out an application for a change of category. I don't want to steal all Danny's talking points, but we will work closely with these applicants that are interested in doing so that once we have the ability to do this, we can get them up and running and operating with an all-alcohol license as soon as possible. So Danny, do you want to talk about the process?
Sure. Thank you, and thank you all for having us here this afternoon. Chair Claudia Zapata, your summary early on was spot on. I just want to get a little more into the weeds of what the process actually would look like for an applicant who currently holds a beer and wine license to take advantage of this upgrade should this pass the council. So the good news is they would take advantage of an application that already exists. It's called the change of category application. It is probably the simplest, if not one of the simplest application forms that exists regarding alcohol. It is about a 2-page form. With the form itself, they're required to get clearances and certificates of good standing from the Department of Revenue and the Department of Unemployment Assistance, and then they would come before the licensing board for a hearing. The board would find public need, and then it would send that application up to the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. If the ABCC approves it, comes back to the city, and that business would actually be able to pretty quickly trade in their beer and wine license for a non-transferable restricted all alcohol license. That is what's written into the statute, that these licenses would be non-transferable. That does mean if the business would close after receiving this all alcohol license, that license would be canceled. It would return back to the city to put back into our quota. Previously, before now, an application to upgrade from beer and wine to all alcohol was pretty rare in Boston because an all alcohol license had to actually be available in our quota. And as this body knows very well, our quota has been at cap for a very long time, hence last year's legislation and the need for that. This, what is before the council today and what hopefully will be passed, really is an opportunity for these folks who have not been able to take advantage of this upgrade in the past because there doesn't need to be an all alcohol license available in the quota. Any license holder who already holds a beer and wine would be able to trade in their license as long as the board found public need, regardless of whether there was one available in the quota. So we do think this is an opportunity. We do hope the board passes this and sends it on to the licensing board to formally adopt, and we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, and I just want to call out that we've been joined by Councilor Fitzgerald. I'll go to my colleagues in order of arrival for any questions. We'll do 6 minutes. I'll go to Councilor Flynn. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you to the administration team that is here. How many restaurants currently have beer and wine licenses?
I believe that total number is around 350. I don't know the exact number, but it's right around 350.
And is that spread out throughout the city?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any particular neighborhood that has a high concentration of beer and wine license compared to the other neighborhoods?
Would have to get that back to you. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Are you able to get that to me tomorrow so I could take a look at it?
Sure.
Okay. What would the fee be for turning your license, beer and wine license in to get a full liquor license?
The upfront fee itself would be our standard application fee. So the upfront cost is $470. That's broken down. That's a $200 application fee that goes to the ABCC. That's a $100 hearing fee that comes to the city, and that's $170 that goes to the Boston Herald. Legally, these need to be advertised in the newspaper. That's the upfront cost. On the back end, it's just the difference between their annual renewal now and an annual renewal of an all alcohol license. The difference is $1,000 annually if they have a beer and wine license. It's $700 annually if they have a cordials license.
So when you hear owners of bars or restaurants talking about it costing $700,000, $800,000 for a license, those conversations would pretty much, that scenario would be over, basically. Is that right?
This would be $1,470 max.
Okay.
I think what you're trying to get at is that is what the cost, some of these private sales.
Yeah.
And we can't really predict what the economic outcome will be of this legislation.
Okay. So if you bought, Kathleen, say if you bought a license for, not from the city, but you bought it privately for $800,000 and you have a all alcohol license, and so you would still, you're still on the hook for that $800,000 because you bought it privately, even though someone next to you got a license for $1,000 potentially if this passes. But does that have any impact on the person that bought a license for $800,000? Does it create any type of unfair economic challenge for the person that is paying an $800,000 basically mortgage on that license?
I can't answer that question directly, but what I can say is the person who bought their license privately is able to then go and pledge that license to a bank. A pledge can be used to upgrade their interior. The pledge could be used to finance the actual purchase of the license, whereas one of these licenses that you're getting from the city that has no value cannot be used as a pledge to a bank. So one can be used to finance business and one cannot. So there is some value, I would imagine, as a business person, but that again is a business question.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to interject, Councillor, but Kathleen's correct. So if you're paying $800,000, you're really buying an asset to use in whatever way. And when we came before you for approving the home rule petition to send to the legislature for the 225, one of the arguments or one of the things that we had shared was that you have folks that are using these licenses to buy their property, for instance, which is great, and we want more of that ownership of property by local entrepreneurs. I just want to put to the side, though, there has been an argument made in the past, which we find a bit fallacious, at least for this particular policy, that doing this will devalue someone who the license of someone who spent that money. If anything, this is leveling the playing field for so many businesses who do not have access to that financing to spend $400,000, $500,000, $600,000.
And who makes the decision? Who makes the final decision about who receives approval or not to get one of these licenses? Who's the decision maker?
The licensing board would vote, and we would take a look at the application and determine which license, whether it's a zip code restricted, a 2006 license, whether it's a 2014 license, where these licenses would be put to the best use.
And is that input also from elected officials? Do they still have the ability to weigh in?
Yes.
In the public also?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the public's role in terms of their voice when this is going before the board? What are their options in terms of weighing in on whether or not they support it or are against it?
Their options would be to participate in the community meeting and to raise their support or their concerns with the applicant, and then to participate in the public hearing process and to also submit written testimony. We've had lots of applications where the neighbors line up and write letters of support, send us emails, and testify in person. Again, we want to make this process fair because some neighborhoods are in a better position where the neighbors know how to participate in the process better. But we also want to make sure those neighborhoods where people may not have had access to participation before are able to take part in the process this time around. So we definitely take a look at support, and it's good for the neighbors to be able to ask the applicant directly questions about how they're going to put this license to use. We think that communication is key to running a successful business. We have residents and we have commercial quarters right next to each other. We want to make sure that they can live in harmony. And again, we take a look at all things that come under the definition of public need.
And my final question, does the license stay with the physical address, or can the license move from that physical address to another address in the neighborhood or outside of the neighborhood?
That's a good question. So it kind of depends on the type of license, right? There are some licenses that are neighborhood restricted that have to stay within a neighborhood. There's a new category of licenses that are zip code restricted that have to stay within a certain zip code. These licenses, this upgrade we're talking about today, I think it would also depend on what the original beer and wine license was. If it was a zip code restricted beer and wine license, it would probably still have to stay in that neighborhood if they upgraded. If it was an unrestricted beer and wine license, they could potentially move that all alcohol license elsewhere as long as they didn't transfer it to another business or entity.
Okay, so if you had a beer and wine license and you got a permission, you were unrestricted, you could move it around, and then you got permission for an all alcohol license. Mm-hmm. You could potentially move that to another neighborhood?
You would still need to receive permission from the licensing board. You would probably need to hold a community meeting. You would need to get permission from the ABCC. So it's not you just pick it up and move it. But hypothetically, yes, I do think you'd be able to do that.
But Councilor, if there is a, I don't know if this is where you were going, but I know some people, when we were talking about this before with the 225, we're concerned that people might take the license and move somewhere else out of the neighborhood. The licensing board, there is a history of asking a bunch of questions when folks are before them, and so happy to make sure that a question like that, do you plan to stay in the community, things like that, are asked either by board members or by other elected officials to at least have on the record, what that business plans on doing with the license. Okay,
I understand. My only concern is I do have further questions or comments, and I'd like to learn more about this before I vote on it. Do we know when we're voting on this?
I don't have a timeline for you, but we can do a second round if you'd like, at least right here, but I don't have a longer
Not this
timeline.
Wednesday, though, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to, this is why we're having this hearing, is to get people's thoughts and suggestions and input.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That means-
Council President?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the restaurateurs who are here and who testified in support. Dynasty in Chinatown, good seeing you again. Little Sage that I'm hoping to try soon, and Angela's that was here on Zoom. As I said earlier, I'm in support of this legislation. I think it's actually great that the conversion, it's the cost essentially that they're paying is the cost of renewal that they would be paying anyways. We know that the profit margins are incredibly thin in this business, and whether it's to increase profit margins or to provide rice wine, as is what people want in the Chinese tradition, I think that's important. I am a bit upset by what I heard from Angela's, and I'm trying to understand that situation a bit more. It sounds like they paid for a beer and wine license, probably running at the market, probably around 160, 150,000. Did they apply? I mean, this is I know the chair. It's in your district. Did they apply at a moment when these restricted license had become available? Did they purchase their license at a time when these restricted licenses were available, or did they purchase it prior?
Years ago.
They purchased it years ago, and at the moment they are now applying for an alcohol restricted license. Understood. I understand that. This local option conversion, and thanks to the State House, I want more local options to come to see in the city of Boston about liquor sales and many other things, but I'm wondering whether this applies to those who have unrestricted and restricted licenses.
Yes.
They'll be able to do the conversion. If you have an unrestricted liquor, beer and wine license that you purchased at market and you want to do the conversion under this legislation, it will be the similar Angela situation if that's what you decide. You end up no longer having the value of the beer and wine license, but the trade-off is you get this all alcohol license and you're able to increase your profit margins.
That's correct. This would be a business decision for the restaurateurs to make.
Awesome. Thank you. I support this legislation. Thank you for that clarity. It clears up my mind. I hear what Angela's Restaurant is trying to say, their predicament, and I'm happy to work with you, Madam Chair, because I know it's in your district if there are any ways that we can help the restaurant think about. But I do think it's a financial decision that some businesses will make, and that will probably work to their benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just a quick note, I do appreciate how responsive and accessible both your cabinet has been and also the licensing board regarding Angela's Cafe's issue. I know that we had that meeting and there's been some brainstorming about what to do. And so I do appreciate your work on this. It is a extraneous circumstance, and I'm hopeful that we can also come up with something bold and creative to figure out how to make sure that at the end of the day they are getting their returns back and they're able to stay in East Boston. We've been joined by Councillor Ben Weber, but we'll go to Councillor Fitzgerald for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great questions from my colleagues that pretty much set the tone for the basic understandings of what have to occur for this. One question. Can you transfer a new all-alcohol license to another entity if it is under the same owner? Like, for instance, I can understand if said restaurant, said someone applies for the new all-alcohol, it says there's no restrictions on it or anything, but it can go, but I'm going to put it in I'm opening a different restaurant or another restaurant, but it's under my umbrella of, because usually restaurateurs, they tend to grow and they can own several. Is it transferable to under that?
If it's a if it is a non-transferable restricted license, that would be a transfer. That would violate that. So they could apply for a new license at the same location. And we have worked with applicants before to make sure that that can work timing in some situations, but it would be a transfer, which if it's a non-transferable license, they couldn't do.
Gotcha. And it's my understanding with the 225 that we've got up from the state, and there are 375 beer and wine licenses currently held by restaurants. So we're looking at potentially adding a 600 all alcohol, right? If I'm doing the 375 and 225.
The 225 weren't all alcohol. The 225 are broken down. Some of those are beer and wine, some of those are alcohol.
Oh, I thought they were, okay, I got you. But some are restricted, some are not. Some are zip code
Exactly.
restricted, all that. Okay. All right, understood. No, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Really don't have any further questions. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Councillor Weber. And we've also been joined by Councillor Durkin.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I guess, there's an article I think WBUR had on how the licenses that we've had, especially in my district, I represent District 6, Jamaica Plain, West Roxbury, only about half of the licenses have been even applied for or given out, and then in JP and West Roxbury, it's like one application. I guess, so just a broader question, like what do you read into that? And then, do we want more applications? Are we trying to get more applications? How's that going? Or is this a positive sign? I don't know how to interpret that data.
Sure. Well, yeah, and that was a weird article. I mean, I appreciate the journalist who wrote it and who spoke to everyone, but it was like, the headline said one thing, but then the article was actually way more positive than what the what the headline said. So, I mean, the short answer to your questions, honestly, is yes. All of them. Yes, we want more applications. Yes, we want more activity. In West Roxbury, would love the support of your office and any others in the community to get the word out there. I know that to date, since last September, the licensing team in partnership with the Office of Small Business, the Office of Nightlife Economy, and many other community stakeholders have had a large number of community gatherings. I don't know if we've made it to West Roxbury yet, so maybe we need to talk after this to set something up. But, we have several, it's 5 per of the year. There might be maybe 8 or 9 left or the potential for 8 or 9 left after another 5 come online next year for West Roxbury that we need to start identifying spaces. So we look at it as an opportunity. The timeline is not over yet, so we have now potentially until the end of next December to identify locations to award these licenses to.
Okay, and then can you just, and maybe you covered this already, I apologize for not being here at the beginning. So to go through this transformation of your license, what is that going to cost? What role does the city play? What are we doing to minimize costs for businesses in the city? And
No problem. So the upfront costs are relatively minimal. It's a total of $470 as like the in-the-door application cost. That includes your fee to the ABCC, your fee to the city, and your advertising fee, because it has to be advertised in the Herald. The role for the city is the applicant would need to apply to the licensing board to upgrade their license. This would involve a hearing before the board, where the board would determine public need, and then ultimately issue that license if public need is found and the ABCC approves.
okay, do they need legal counsel for the hearing? No?
No.
No.
They usually don't have it.
It's about half and half. That's really at their discretion. People ask us this a lot. We say, are you comfortable speaking in front of us? Are you comfortable filling out this form? If so, you probably don't need attorneys, but that's really up to you.
Okay, just basically my last question. And what they're going to end up, if they go through this, is a non-transferable all liquor license, if I'm sorry if I'm butchering this. But so before, it's non-transferable, just the beer and wine is non-transferable also? Is that, so they're going from a non-transfer, they're not giving up their ability to transfer the license? Or are they?
They are.
They could be.
They are.
If they currently, so, right now, there are some restaurants that can only serve Sam Adams, and they all want to be able to sell cocktails. And some restaurants, as Danny was laying out earlier, have the restricted licenses where, they can only serve in West Roxbury, they can't move it to Seaport. There are others, though, that might have a license that you can move anywhere, and currently could move that unrestricted beer and wine wherever they want to. But if they want to participate in this program, they would be handing over that transferable license for something that's restricted.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm all for the free market, but we don't like seeing our licenses just migrate, especially from outlying neighborhoods like the ones I represent to the Seaport. Not to demonize the Seaport, but this seems to be where they end up. So, am I from a city economic health perspective? Is that? Do you agree with me?
I'll say that we want a level playing field for all of our neighborhoods, and so of course we want to see continued growth and activity for Seaport, downtown, Back Bay, et cetera. But it also stands to benefit the city's economy if our neighborhoods are thriving as well, which at the moment they are. The lowest retail vacancies in the country. A lot of that in part to our restaurants, and as well as just the vibrancy of our neighborhoods. At the same time, this particular program, I don't know how many restricted licenses are in, or how many beer and wine are in Seaport, downtown, Back Bay, other parts, commercial cores of the city, but they would also be eligible for upgrading their licenses, which I think would be important for their bottom line in the city's economy.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilor Durkin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair Coletta Zapata. So I'm really excited to be here, mostly because my district has the most liquor licenses, and I want there to be economic vibrancy everywhere. I think I testified as one of the first things I did as a city councilor in support of the bill that made this possible, and I think it's just so important that when you go to any neighborhood, there's somewhere you can eat, there's somewhere you can drink, and there's somewhere you can do something fun. And I think all of our neighborhoods have that, but we need more of that everywhere. And I think I like to travel to neighborhoods outside of my district. You might not see it on my Instagram stories, but I'm all around town. And I think it's really important that every single neighborhood business feel access to the same opportunity. So I'm just curious what measures have been taken to make sure that the big companies are not getting access to these very precious permits.
Well, I would say,
well, there was like a story about somewhat like some of the sort of people that we didn't think, like, you know, in certain neighborhoods, there were sort of like bigger entities going for some of these licenses. So I was just curious how we can make sure that this is really for like local.
Well, I think so far the licensing board and the MoCal team have done a good job of asking the right questions during the meetings to understand who's going to benefit, and making sure that local operators are going to get the support that they need for these licenses. But not to say that we don't want larger operators in some of our neighborhoods, because their financials will allow them to kind of withstand market downturns and be kind of an anchor for the community. That said, I don't, off the top of my head, so my team will correct me if I'm wrong here, but we haven't seen a lot of the large operators going after the new batch of 225. I'll say 213, because the 12 transferable licenses, of course, everybody has put in an application for those, but the mayor has suggested that time be taken on the part of the licensing board to understand the full broad spectrum of who is applying, so that decisions can be made that will ensure that they don't go to the folks who are ready first up, but rather that everyone has a fair shot at those licenses.
That's really helpful. And I just want to say, Kathleen and Daniel, it's very nice to see you guys outside of a Zoom screen. Usually I'm watching. That was one of my reasons for coming today too. Well, because this isn't super related to my district, I just want to thank you all for the work that you're doing on this, because every district, and every neighborhood deserves a main streets and deserves to have that economic vibrancy. And I think the work that you guys have been putting in is going to make all of that possible. So, and I know you all, just while I have the chance, Chair Joyce, thank you for all the diligence that you provide to the city. I think the times that I've come myself or had my team come, they always recognize that there's a lot of things you have to weigh in the jobs that you and the roles that you play, and I think you guys do a great job of making sure that you were representing economic vibrancy and businesses, and but also the community in all of these decisions. So, and I was finally in support of El Jefe's getting their 3 a.m. So that was a big, that was a big thing, big controversy in my district. So, but just thank you all. I'm really excited about this, and can't wait to visit some of these local restaurants and businesses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. One is around, I think, the number, just given some of the language that we see in the local option. And this could be super obvious, silly question, but if I'm thinking about it, maybe others are, and folks at home. So it says that municipalities that accept a local option may allow for Section 12 wine and malt licensee trade in that license for non-transferable all alcohol license. And it also says that we can't, under the local option, we can't create licenses, or we can't expand the pool. So
That's right.
would this come from the 12 transferable all alcohol licenses, or does it come from the whole pool of the 677?
It comes, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, basically, so this statute was written in such a way that it wouldn't really upset the quota at all. That license that you have, a beer and wine license, would just kind of magically become an all alcohol license. The beer and wine license they had wouldn't come back to the city to give out to someone else. That would increase our quota. It wouldn't do that. It would just become the all alcohol license. So we don't gain any net licenses.
Fascinating. Okay, thank you. That provides a clarity. One follow-up question. When the business is done, does that license go back to the pool, or does it automatically, does it go back to the restrictions that originally had the beer and wine?
It would go back to whatever pool it came from originally. So we are right now kind of creating the tracking in our office to make sure we know where these licenses came from. So if it was initially an unrestricted beer and wine license, if the converted all alc comes back to the city, it comes back as an unrestricted beer and wine license. It goes back to whatever, I know that sounds complicated. Basically, it goes back to whatever kind of license it started as. Could be an unrestricted beer and wine if that's where it started. Could be a zip code restricted beer and wine if that's where it started. Could be a Main Streets restricted beer and wine if that's where it started. So we would be able to track where that license came from to make sure we're not upsetting the quota under the statute.
Okay, excellent. I forgot to thank Chairman Aaron Michaelwitz, who I think that this was a part of whatever recommendations he had, so I just want to be sure to give credit where credit is due in addition to all the work that you do. How many folks, do we have any projected number of licenses that could realistically be converted within the first year, should this be passed?
If there's interest, I feel confident we would be able to convert them. It really is a straightforward process, 2-page application, a public meeting if ONS recommends that, and then a hearing before the board. So we would add additional hearing dates if there was this influx. We want to get these businesses up and operating with these new licenses as quickly as we possibly can. I mean, there are some dates that we have to be considerate of, like the hearing notices, and then they do have a process up at the ABCC, but I do feel confident we would be able to get every application for a conversion up and running pretty quickly.
The factor was really just how many apply. I think we can get through them pretty quickly, frankly. So it's up to the businesses to start applying.
Do you have any, just based on the existing landscape, do you have an estimate of how many folks you think may, just based on the interest?
I've just anecdotally have received calls from the Sevens in your district. She's very interested in upgrading. I think I probably have heard from probably 10 to 12 applicants actually just asking more questions about what it means. And again, I just say it's a business decision. It's up to you. We've heard from some in South Boston. We've heard from the North End. And again, I think it's a question of getting the word out. Not everyone is following this in the news, but I think it would be something that if I was a business owner, I would think strongly about whether or not this is something I'd want to pursue.
And if this were to go forward, it's something that I support, just given the conversation here, and I think from hearing from my district, I want to make sure that we are realizing the spirit and intent of the 2024 legislation. It's good to know that this is kind of separate, it's supplementing, it's not taking away from or anything like that, but it still means a lot for us as a city moving forward, I know to everybody in this room, to ensure that this measure is actually helping folks achieve generational wealth, or they're able to help with their margins and help their businesses, especially if they're a locally owned business. Are we doing any sort of equity tracking on this moving forward? What sort of measures are currently in place for something like this? What are you thinking about, just to make sure that the spirit and intent of last year's legislation, I know it's not 100%, it's tangential, but is there any way that we're just going to make sure that the dispersal of these licenses are going to be equitable in each neighborhood?
Well, so we do, for the 225, we do have pieces that we're measuring to ensure that on the equity basis that we're reaching the spirit of the legislation, as you mentioned. I mean, the positive thing is that because it restricted it to certain neighborhoods that don't have a ton of these licenses, it's more helpful in achieving those goals. I would say for this particular legislation, to be honest, our goal is for as many restaurants as possible that want to participate to participate in this program. For me in particular, in advance of next year, there's going to be millions of people floating through the city of Boston for FIFA, tall ships, the 258th activities, and I want all of them to have a special cocktail related to any or all of those events, and to make as much money as they can. And so, but we will be we're already targeting certain neighborhoods, like West Roxbury, folks that have not really participated yet in the 225 or the 2024 legislation. With that, we'll also be letting those folks know of this opportunity. But this is all part of the communication strategy. We've already been doing lit drops. We've been reaching out, like we identified where folks had cordials or could benefit from a license, and have been doing one-on-one visits and things like that. So we'll continue those efforts to make sure as many people as possible participate.
Thank you. And one last question, and then I'll go to my colleagues for a second round. But going through the change of category application was really helpful, understanding what the processes are. You had said something about getting a certificate of good standing from DOR, and there was another?
DUA, unemployment assistance.
Okay. And that's just to ensure they're paying their taxes and doing
Exactly.
what they need to? Okay, cool. Yep. Do we have any labor checks ensuring that they're not
So all of our renewals, and even when you apply for a new license to pick it up, we do make folks sign the wage theft certification with the city as well, with us, and we are in contact with the labor cabinet as well to make sure every time they find out about a labor issue, they send it our way as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. I'll go back to Councillor Flynn for any additional questions he may have. We'll do 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you tell me what, going from a beer and wine to this full license, what would a full license include? Would that include, what do they call it, spirits or
Yes.
or hard alcohol?
Hard alcohol.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Danny can probably explain a little bit more about spirits. A lot of the beer and wine license holders are adding spirits because it gives them the ability to sell things like really fruity high noons and stuff.
That's the cordials, yeah.
Those cordials.
But this upgrade to an all-alcohol license would allow someone to sell any alcoholic beverage that is sold on the market in Massachusetts.
Let me ask a follow-up. Does this mean eventually we're going to have a conversation about extending hours for restaurants or bars in Boston? Or that has nothing to do with this?
No, this doesn't have anything to do with the hours of operation.
Okay.
That would be, if a restaurant wanted to extend their hours, that would be a different application, a different public process.
And the 2 o'clock last call in Massachusetts is also state law, so that wouldn't even be under local control.
Okay. Are you concerned at all about drinking and driving?
I think, I appreciate that question because I know that I don't think it came up in this body when we were talking about the additional 225, but I know outside of the building it came up a little bit. I think the time we're in compared to when the state was having that conversation back in like the 80s, which is, to the frustration of some younger people who are upset about the, not being able to have bottomless mimosas. The options that are available today in terms of Uber, Lyft, are important. We also know the stats nationally, which are also true for the state, that drinking is going down despite all of these options that are being made available. So I would say that, we continue, along with Commissioner Cox and others, and the licensing board in particular, to alert people to the dangers of drinking and driving, but we've not seen that be an issue since, these measures have taken place. However, Councillor, I think our Director of Nightlife Economy may have met with you because it was a good idea that you had in our last conversation about working with Uber and Lyft, because I know there was a thought that they weren't doing what they could be doing.
Yeah, Chief, she didn't meet with me. She canceled the meeting.
Got it. Okay, well, I'll work with her to make sure that we get some time with you again.
And I am concerned, I'm still concerned about, and as you probably know, I live in South Boston off of West Broadway on F Street, and when my wife and I walk up to Broadway sometimes or drive by Broadway, we see huge lines, as you know, but I'm also very concerned about people under the influence getting into Uber and Lyft. It's a major concern I have, and I know it's somewhat unrelated to this, but we need to do more to provide a safer environment, especially for young women that go into Uber and Lyft often alone, coming out of whether it's on Boylston Street or whether it's on Broadway or any of these streets, Congress Street or Tremont Street. So that's a concern I have. One other concern, did you factor in at all the impact that this may or may not have on a neighboring restaurant in terms of, does that help them financially? Does it hurt them financially? Does it have no impact on a restaurant? Does it complement each other? I know the margins of being successful in a restaurant are very narrow, but are we adding more competition to a restaurant right next door that now has the option to sell unlimited different types of alcohol?
Well, I think, Councillor, in the free market economy that we have, it's important that we are supporting competition. But we've not seen, either with the 225 that have been given to us or even previously decisions that were made around licensing have a major impact on neighboring restaurants. I take that point because, again, when conversations around adding liquor licenses comes up, that's usually a point that folks bring up, that if we add more, that's going to harm other restaurants in the area. But, it's been a policy point, but we've not seen that bear out in the facts.
And I'll say anecdotally, I see that it actually encourages not so much competition, but businesses working together. If you go into one restaurant and say it's a 45-minute wait to sit down for dinner with your family or with your friends, you might go next door to a place and have a drink while you wait to be called in. In my neighborhood, I think the clusters of restaurants actually encourage good economic growth, foot traffic, and encourages people to patronize all of those places. If the neighborhoods that I'm most worried about are the ones that only have one restaurant and only one option for their neighbors. I think the vibrancy of a neighborhood is, again, in its businesses, and when you can go, you have choices, I think that's good for the community. And as far as the drinking and driving, it is something that we are concerned about, and we do ask managers when they appear before us, how are you training your staff to look for signs of intoxication? It's a question I ask at every hearing for a violation. It's not okay to take their money and just have them go out the door and get into an Uber. You have a responsibility to keep them safe, even when they leave your establishment. So it is something that we drill home with our licensees at our violation hearings. We're also going out to the neighborhoods, in your neighborhood as well, in meeting with the restaurant and bar owners. We're calling it our back to school thing, especially in Southie, especially in Brighton. And we're getting the bar owners, it's a mandatory meeting, to come in and talk about, what are you guys seeing? How are you controlling the lines? What are you doing to check IDs? Please, drink covers, yes. Please save your video. That's a question that we're getting now too. How long is your video stored for? 10 days isn't enough anymore. It's up to you to invest in a better technology, whether it's ID scanners or video. These things, the public safety is very important. More licenses, I think, can be a huge boon to the city of Boston and to our neighborhoods, but it can't come at a cost of lives and public safety.
Well, thank you, Kathleen, and I've worked with you many years on those issues. I support my businesses in my district, but I'm very strict with restaurants and bars in my district. I'm not a cheerleader for them, but like you, I hold them accountable and talk about, drinking and driving, protecting people that are in the restaurant, overcrowding, overserving, Uber and Lyft, these date rape drugs that people are putting in. And so I want to say thank you to you, Kathleen, because you've been a strong advocate of ensuring patrons, when they go into a restaurant or a bar, are safe. And you're providing a safer environment due to the tough questions you're asking. And I respect that. That's why I also don't cheerlead for my businesses, but I do hold them accountable, and I want a safe environment for my patrons when they go into a place in my district or really anywhere. But thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me an extra minute.
Thank you. Councilor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No matter what the issue is, I always feel it's important for either side to be able to explain the opposition's case, so that I know that each side fully understands each other. Who would be against this happening and why?
A restaurant that went and spent $150,000 on their beer and wine license. Perhaps they have a pledge on it on their building, and their pledge isn't paid off yet. They might be sandwiched between two restaurants that have all alcohol on either side, and they feel as if they don't have an opportunity without giving up some of an asset of their business, an opportunity to participate and apply, because it would perhaps put their asset at jeopardy if they had to turn it into the city, so to speak.
So essentially people that just currently own a private license at the moment, that would be.
And especially if it has a pledge on it.
And if it has a pledge on it.
Yeah.
Especially. Does it hurt? Does it devalue anything for what they have? Would it devalue, like as if, say you gave it to the bank to say, hey, we're going to put a pledge on this to take some money out? Can you lose value in it with something like this going forward?
It would have to be a conversation with them and their lender, right? They'd be going from a beer and wine license that could be worth $160,000, something like that in the open market, to a non-transferable alcohol license that would not have any street market value. So that would have to be a conversation with their lender as to how that would affect the pledge.
But even if they weren't, even if that specific client wasn't going to upgrade it, would it hurt it regardless? I mean, say if every other restaurant said, I'm going to go it, but I have my private one, does it devalue theirs on the
I don't think
fiscal
that's a
side?
question we could answer. I think we would need an economist to talk about
Okay.
the impacts of that.
Yeah, no, I'm literally, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
it through as I'm
People
sitting here
ask us that
talking with
too.
you,
We
and
don't know.
I do not know the answer as well. I wonder if that.
I don't think we can speculate on that. I mean, so far, every time that liquor licenses have expanded in Boston, we have not seen the price go down. So that is anecdotal evidence of, I don't think it would dilute the market, but we don't know. We can't really speculate on what this might do.
And the current number of privately owned ones, privately held licenses at the moment?
The vast majority of licenses in Boston are transferable.
Right, private, yeah.
Yeah,
So
are privately owned. I don't know the exact number, but the vast majority are.
I just wanted to say, if those would be the main folks that would be against something like this, and then understanding from you guys why, just want to know what, how many people is that, I guess was my question. But if we don't know that, that's all I have. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Durkin?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add that I'm really supportive of this, but it does, all of these questions are really important because it really is, when you open up a small business, there's so much at stake. It's like your family's livelihood, and understanding that there's like a lot of dynamics going on with these liquor licenses that are already out there. I'm just curious, and I think you answered this, but I don't remember hearing the answer, how quickly most of these could go online. And I think I misunderstood when I was speaking earlier that these aren't restricted in any way to any neighborhood. And I think that's great because I meet a lot of business owners throughout my district that don't live in my district who know that doing business on Newbury Street or Boylston Street or Causeway Street is ideal for them given the type of business they want to run. So I just was hoping to get sort of what the process looks like and when sort of any webinars or any meetings that you guys are having so that we can get that out to our constituents.
Sure. So the question of when this could come online is really quickly. The ABCC has already updated their change of category application to include exactly this. It's an existing application that we process all the time. As soon as, if this passes the council, licensing board can adopt it very quickly, and then we can start taking applications immediately as soon as it's adopted by the licensing board. In terms of webinars, that sort of thing, we're already doing bi-weekly office hours. This will certainly be a topic of what we'll be talking about there. I think we would love to work with the Cabinet and Small Business to schedule webinars, in-person info sessions, something like that to make sure we are getting the word out.
Would you be willing to do some of those with district city councilors?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because I'd love to host one of those for my district.
Yes, every hearing EOI has, we will always extend the opportunity to all of our counselors to partner with you to host an event in your district.
Awesome. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thanks. I just have two follow-up. Has any other city or town opted into this yet, or were we the first ones? Do we know?
I'm not aware.
Not sure. This only just became an option, in the past, I think, month and a half, so unclear.
As always, though, Boston is number one. So.
We're leading, absolutely. Okay, and then I have to ask about Angela's Cafe. We did have that conversation so many months ago about it, and I'm happy to hear that they did decide to go forward, where they had that beer and wine. They've put their investment up, and now they feel like if they were to be evicted because they don't own their property, or God forbid something else happens, they have to leave, they lose out on that license. We had talked about certain guarantees or breaks for either them or their landlord. Has there been any additional conversation, anything we can talk about here that we can tell them, or? Any movement?
I'd have to go back in my notes in terms of the follow-up from small business on this, but I will say that, at least when it comes to the building piece, the fact that they're leasing versus owning, the city does look forward to shortly finally launching our commercial acquisition program, which would provide funding for small businesses to acquire the commercial or mixed-use property that they're inhabiting at the moment. And there's other forms of technical assistance that we can provide, whether it's legal or otherwise, to support Angela's. Because, again, we're here talking about a specific policy item, but we like to, like you, Counselor, you've shown this through your tenure, we like to think holistically about the business and support that we can provide. So I will take note of it today, go back and follow up on my notes and work to make sure that we're addressing their specific concerns.
Thank you, and just shouting out State Senator Lydia Edwards, who had also talked about maybe tax breaks at the state level, so that she's a partner, and Representative Modero is also in tune with this and a great partner as well. Thank you so much. Anything else before we wrap? Do we have any more public testimony? No? Okay. All right, I think that we could end it here. Thank you again for your work on this. I want to shout out the restaurants that took time to be here and provide your perspective. Thank you for everything you do. I can foresee that this would move through the council quickly, although I can't say for sure whether or not it's going to be next week or the week after. I have to talk to my colleagues, but please just support it personally. I'll just go do the rounds with my colleagues, and hopefully we'll get it moving expeditiously. I think it is a good thing for the city of Boston. So with that, this hearing on docket 1411 is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.